Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of the B-Roll Movie Podcast. My name is Brian Suffield, your host. I'm very excited to welcome you guys to this show. This is a new show that I'm doing. I'm really grateful to have you guys here with me on this new journey that I'm taking, and I cannot wait to sit down with all of you and talk about film. It's my favorite thing in the world. I've loved film my whole life, and I've podcasted for many years. And I wanted to start a new podcast. Here we are. This is a terrible introduction, so I apologize in advance. I'm really sorry to everybody listening or watching this right now because I have no idea how to start the show off. But I'm really excited to be here with you guys today. And I'm really grateful to have you here with me. Hopefully, you guys are still sticking around. So, yes, welcome to the B Roll podcast. This is a podcast about film. If you're a film geek, you've come to the right place. If you're trying to get into film, well, I would like to think that you've also come to the right place. So, who am I? Who is Bryan Suffield? What are his motives? What are his goals? What is he like? What does he not like? What does he do? What doesn't he do? You guys want to know stuff about me? I'll tell you guys stuff about me. So, yes, my name is Bryan Suffield. I am based in the greatest state of all time, New Jersey. That's obviously sarcasm. And I've loved film my whole life. I've grown up watching all these films. And it wasn't until I was a teenager where I started to realize that I was really interested in how films were made, going in depth with how they were made and how they were brought to life. Not just watching them for entertainment value, but I wanted to know what goes into making a film. And as I got older, I started checking out all these movies that were so acclaimed and celebrated and beloved. And the rest is history from there. I actually have a degree in filmmaking. I went to school to study it. And even though in the long run, I realized that that wasn't what I wanted to do with my life, I will always love talking about movies. I will always love watching movies. Film is my favorite thing to converse about with people. It's my favorite thing to talk about. It's the thing I think about the most. It's my favorite form of media. It's my favorite form of entertainment. Film is my go-to thing when I need a good way to escape what goes on in my life. So when it comes to film, I really admire how it just immerses you into this world, similar to when you watch a TV show or play a video game or even listen to a song. That's the beautiful thing with art. It just grabs you from where you are and just places you into the world that you're watching or reading about or listening to or playing. And film's done that for me for the longest time. I really believe that there will never be a day where I don't want to talk about movies. I know for a fact there will never be a day where I don't want to watch a movie. And when it comes to podcasting, I started podcasting when I was in high school, about 6 years ago when I was 17. I turned 23 in a few days at the time of this recording, so I'm going to be the age where nobody likes you. And that's a fact because Blink 182 said that, and they're generally right when it comes to the stuff that they talk about in their music. But yeah, for the past 6 years, I've podcast. I've done stuff with radio, and all the podcasts that I've done since I started doing them have been about movies. Because, like I said, that's my favorite thing in the world. Yeah, I could talk about other things, but if you ask me one topic that I could talk about forever and forever, it's film. Because I just feel like I'm not passionate about anything else. I have other passions, I have other interests, of course, but film is my go to thing. Maybe I don't want to necessarily make movies, but I'm grateful I got to do that. Maybe I don't want to be a film critic, but I'm grateful I get to talk about these movies. I just love watching movies and I just love talking about them. And that's why I started this podcast, so I could talk to you guys about movies so that you guys could listen to just another film geek. And hey, if you're a film geek, hit me up for sure. We have social media platforms, we have a YouTube channel, we have many ways of interacting. And I hope that I could talk to you guys about why you love movies, some of your favorite movies, and just maybe about other stuff, life, what drinks you like, what do you like to eat, what meat you like to put on your sandwiches. I mean, I'm a turkey and cheese guy myself, but hey, I'm all for the ham and the salami and the roast beef and even tuna. I'm all for it. The whole bunch of deli meats that go on a sandwich, particularly a ciabatta, toasted, just delicious, just purely fantastic. So yeah, and with the B-roll, we're going to be reviewing movies that are currently released, but we're also going to be talking about current topics that are happening in the world of film right now. News, possible trailers. We're going to talk about some anniversaries, maybe do some retrospectives, cool lists, etc., etc. This is all about film. It's not just focusing on one specific aspect of film. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things that go on with film. And today, on the first episode, I thought it'd be really exciting to do a quadruple review-a-thon. That's right. There were 4 big releases that came out this weekend, guys. 4. That's a lot. And because of that, I get to talk about all of them. And I'm really excited because they're all very different films from one another. We have a Disney film. We have a film based on a Nickelodeon cartoon. We have a sequel to a celebrated 80s comedy. And then we have this film that was shot 84 years ago and finally came out this weekend, starring Spider-Man and Ray Skywalker and a whole bunch of other people. Just the wide array of movies that came out this weekend, whether it be in theaters or on streaming services, blows my mind. Huge weekend for movies. Huge weekend in general for entertainment. Paramount Plus launched this weekend. I'm going to tell you right now, I originally was not going to sign up for that, but I figured I'd give it a try. There's a 1-month free trial, and I figure why not? And oh my God, I haven't really watched much on there, but there's so much stuff from my childhood on there. It's every single Nickelodeon show is pretty much on there. I could watch all of Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide again. I could watch all of Zoe 101 again. I could watch The Amanda Show again. Fairly Odd Parents, Jimmy Neutron, Drake and Josh, all this. I was blown away when I saw every single Nickelodeon show on there. The movie selection right now was actually not terrible, but I haven't sat down to really look at what's on there. But I did watch the first episode of Camp Coral, which, you know what, I'm going to touch upon a little bit later on when I talk about Sponge on the Run. So it's all coming together, guys. It's all coming together. But yeah, Paramount Plus launching is crazy. Although a lot of the stuff that they announced that's coming to their service, I'm very interested in. The Rugrats reboot is the thing that I'm interested in the most. I've actually been watching that trailer on loop. It's only like a 1 minute trailer, and I'm intrigued to see how it all plays out. I grew up loving the Rugrats. I will be honest, I'm not as well versed with the Rugrats as I was with SpongeBob because SpongeBob premiered in 1999, and that's only 1 year after I was born. So me and SpongeBob are practically the same age. Rugrats came out like almost 10 years before I was born. So I go into Rugrats with a completely different mindset than I did with SpongeBob. And then iCarly's coming back, and I actually been just randomly out of the blue just watching iCarly. I got my wisdom teeth pulled out a few days ago, and I figure like, while I'm all tired and droopy and everything, why not put on something that I've seen? And I hadn't watched iCarly in God knows how long, probably since it ended almost 10 years ago. And you know what? It's not the best show. I think it's pretty funny though. It has its moments. There are moments that I'm like, I can't believe that joke flew over my head when I was a kid. That might have been the last like really good show that Dan Schneider, just saying his name kind of gives me chills. That was probably the last great show from Nickelodeon that he was involved in because I'm Drake and Josh, staple of my childhood. Still love that show to this day. Zoe 101 I thought was great. Amanda Show I thought was great. And then iCarly I also was a big fan of. I know there are people out there my age that were fans of Victorious. Victorious was okay. Not awful, but not great either. But hey, you know, Paramount Plus. Very interested to see how this service does. But, going off tangent, we have some news stories to talk about, and not too many though, because I want to save a lot for the quadruple review-a-thon that we're going to be doing later on this episode. But I want to talk about a wonderful lady who created a film that literally lit my socks on fire. Talk about Céline Sciamma. She made the incredible, phenomenally beautiful, just riveting piece of work called Portrait of a Lady on Fire from 2019. It was one of the best films of the year. It was, I think, in my top. I think it was number 7 or number 6 for me. It was in my top 10, but I do not remember the number it was placed at. I remember seeing that film at the New York Film Festival. Big crowd, big audience. It was mobbed. And this was September 2019. So this was just a few months before COVID-19 started. And it's crazy to think that at this point we're about to hit the 1 year mark of COVID, when COVID became the big thing it is, especially here in the United States. I remember seeing that film, not seeing the trailer. I went to it completely blind. I got a gist of what it was about just from the image, the first look image that I saw. And I remember watching it, and I was so blown away by it. It broke my heart. It was so raw. The progression of the relationship between the two women was so beautiful and so powerful. And then the imagery was gorgeous. It literally, pun intended, looked like you were looking at a portrait come to life. It was fire, the cinematography. And then the film didn't get nominated really anywhere. It got nominated for a few foreign film awards and everything, but it lost to Parasite. And I mean, that's not a problem at all, because Parasite is one of the best films I've ever seen. It was my favorite film of that year, and it's one of my favorite films ever now. I've seen that film probably like almost 10 times at this point. So, ever since I saw Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I was really excited to see what Céline Sciamma was going to do next. Well, the distributor of Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Neon, actually picked up Céline Sciamma's follow-up to that film, and it is called, I'm loading it up right now, I'm going to be looking at some notes here, so please excuse me, Petite Maman. It might be pronounced something different, but that's how it's listed here. So Neon has acquired North American rights to Céline Sciamma's follow-up feature to Portrait of a Lady on Fire called Petite Maman, following its premiere at the Berlin Film Festival. And this premise sounds awesome. So I'm going to read it from this article. This film follows 8-year-old Nellie, who loses her beloved grandmother and goes to help her parents clean out her mother's childhood home. She explores the house and the surrounding woods where her mother, Marion, used to play and build the treehouse she's heard so much about. One day, her mother abruptly leaves. That's when Nellie meets a girl her own age in the woods building the treehouse. Her name is Marion. Does that not sound incredible? That sounds literally amazing. Just reading the synopsis of it, I'm sold. I was already sold by the fact that she was directing it. I didn't even care if it was about someone taking a crapper taking a crap on the crapper. I didn't even care if it was about that. I just wanted to see what she was going to do next. Now, I can't comment on everything that she's directed because I've only seen Portrait of a Lady on Fire, but just by watching that, I mean, right there, I knew the sheer talent that she had as a filmmaker. And this next film for her really sounds riveting. It sounds beautiful. It sounds like it's going to be a tearjerker. And I think the premise sounds really cool. This young girl all of a sudden encounters her mother as a kid. I mean, that's so cool. That's awesome. And some people are like, well, that sounds very stupid. I don't really like the appeal of it. Well, you better shut up because it sounds awesome. I'm very excited to see this film. There's no release date to it right now, I believe. Let me just read to see if there's a release for it. There's no release date right now. It's probably going to be coming out at some point this year. I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to come out towards the end of the year, in preparation for next award season and everything. And hey, I'm all for that. I'm all for that. Regardless of when this comes out, I'll be there. If I see this I would like to see this on the big screen. I saw Portrait of a Lady on Fire on the big screen. That was incredible. I will tell you that I've since watched it again at home. When it dropped on Hulu early in 2020, I watched it the day it dropped on there, and I still love the movie. It's incredible, and I bought the Criterion. I haven't watched the Criterion yet, but I can tell you that that film, for me personally, was it might have hit me more on the big screen. Also, probably because that was the first time I saw the movie. So you know how whenever you watch a movie a second time and it doesn't hit you as much as it did the first time because you know what happens. You just wish you can go back in time to when you see a movie for the first time. And that's how I felt with Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I mean, that's how I feel with most movies that I see, but Portrait of a Lady on Fire just leaves this really interesting impact on you that I don't know how to describe for people that haven't seen the movie. But when you do get around to seeing it, it's just something that is so unlike anything you probably have ever seen. It's one of the best romances I've ever watched in my life, and it's very seductive. Similar to how Call Me by Your Name was very seductive and slow and took its time to build up the relationships and everything. Portrait of a Lady on Fire does the exact same thing. So I'm very excited for Céline Sciamma's next movie. I think it's cool that Neon is reunited with her. That's awesome. I love when studios and distributors do that, where they reunite with filmmakers that they've collaborated with before in the past. And speaking of directors reunited with studios that they've worked before, Robert Zemeckis is currently in the midst of making a remake of Pinocchio for Disney. Now, Robert Zemeckis had worked with Disney before. He directed a adaptation of A Christmas Carol for them back in 2009, starring Jim Carrey, which that movie is so friggin' weird. When I saw it when I was a kid, I was terrified, and I haven't seen it since, so who knows how that film's going to make me feel now. I'll watch it maybe this Christmas, so we'll have to wait for that. So this Pinocchio remake, in case you guys don't know, Tom Hanks is going to be headlining it as Geppetto, which is very, very exciting. This is going to be the first time that Tom Hanks and Robert Zemeckis have worked together since the Polar Express. Now, in case you guys live under a rock and don't know the relationship between Tom Hanks and Robert Zemeckis, Robert Zemeckis directed this little film called Forrest Gump, where Tom Hanks won this very tiny award called an Oscar. And then they made this, this even smaller film set on something called an island called, I think it was called Castaway. And then he taught to a volleyball. And then he made the train movie, Polar Express. No, I mean, these guys have collaborated together many times. I've always appreciated their collaboration with one another. Forrest Gump is great. Castaway's great. Polar Express is really good. So I'm really excited to see what they do. Whoa, I just hit my mic. So I'm really excited to see what they're going to be doing with Pinocchio, even though I will admit right off the bat, I don't really think there's a necessity for this remake to happen. But I mean, I think everyone could say the same thing about all these Disney remakes that are coming, as well as remakes in general. I think Zemeckis is an interesting choice for Pinocchio. Although, if I'm going to be honest, I'm more excited for Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio movie, which is supposed to come out sometime this year on Netflix. It's going to be a stop motion anime film, and the cast that they assembled for that is insane. But also, I prefer Guillermo del Toro over Robert Zemeckis because Robert Zemeckis' track record these last few years has not been the best. I will tell you that Welcome to Morrowind, from what I heard, I haven't seen it. It looks really good, but I heard not so good things about it. That movie did not get the best reception. I really liked Allied. I know a lot of people didn't really care for it. Same with The Walk. I thought The Walk was actually really good. It's one of my personal favorite theater experiences to date. Seeing that in IMAX 3D was so breathtaking. And the sequence where he's walking across the Twin Towers, that just that blew my mind. That was absolutely jaw-dropping stuff. I don't know how the visual effects for that film were not recognized. It didn't have to win anything, but it should have been nominated somewhere. And that movie did not get the recognition that it deserved. That movie is so good. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is great, and we're going to talk about him just a second, funny enough. And then Flight was awesome. But I think a lot of people universally like Flight. I don't know how you cannot at least like Flight. That movie is very different for Zemeckis, and that was his first live action film since Castaway, because between Castaway and Flight, he was just doing, the motion capture animated films. He did Polar Express, Beowulf, and A Christmas Carol, and then he came back with Flight, and it just blew everyone away. But also, I mean, the last film that Zemeckis made, The Witches, oh my god, it was such a mess. If you guys have not seen The Witches, I strongly advise to not see it. Although Anne Hathaway's performance in it is pretty awesome. She's great in it, but otherwise, don't bother. It really was a clunker. Just watch the original from the 90s with Angelica Houston. That movie that's a quality movie. The remake, though, the opposite of quality. It was garbage. Um so yeah, Joseph Gordon-Levitt will be joining the cast of this Pinocchio remake as Jiminy Cricket, which is very interesting because Joseph Gordon-Levitt is awesome in practically everything that he's in. This guy has a wide range when it comes to his filmography. I mean, he was in something like Angels in the Outfield from the 90s, and then he's in something like 10 Things I Hate About You, 500 Days of Summer, 50-50, Lincoln, Premium Rush, The Dark Knight Rises, The Wind Rises. The Wind Rises. It goes back and forth with My Neighbor Totoro is my favorite Miyazaki film. No, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's the man. Don John. Yeah, I'm waiting for Joseph Gordon-Levitt to direct another film. Don John's very good, and I hope that one day he comes back to the directing. But no, he's going to be playing Jiminy Cricket, and I'm very intrigued with this casting. I think it's a pretty interesting choice. Um, and then we have Cynthia Erivo playing the Blue Fairy. And if you guys don't know much about Cynthia Erivo, she's actually in one of the films I'll be talking about this weekend. And she's very talented. She's a remarkably gifted singer, which might be the reason why she's actually cast as the Blue Fairy. But also, she is a very good actress. I've liked her in the stuff that I've seen her in. I thought she was very good in The Bad Times at El Royale, a film that I personally really didn't care for all that much. But in Widows, a film that I did love, she was also very strong in that. I haven't seen her Oscar-nominated performance in Harriet. I haven't gotten around to watching that film. Not sure why. I guess I just missed it because of stuff going on at the time, and I completely forgot about it when the Oscars were happening last year. But she's a very talented performer. She's a Tony Award winner too. She starred in the musical adaptation of The Color Purple, and she is so good. And I think that this is a good casting too. I don't know how to feel about this film in general. It's one of the remakes that I'm least interested in. To be honest, the remake that I'm looking forward to the most is David Lowery's Peter Pan. David Lowery is a very talented filmmaker. He's honestly one of the best we have working today. His Pete's Dragon remake is so underrated and so underappreciated and not talked about enough, because when everyone talks about Disney remakes, they talk about Aladdin and Cinderella and Jungle Book and Beauty and the Beast, but Pete's Dragon might actually be the best Disney remake. It's not my favorite Disney remake, but it might just be the best one. I think Cinderella and Pete's Dragon and The Jungle Book are the best remakes that Disney has done so far. Um, and A Ghost Story, a film that I really just keep thinking about. When I saw that movie, I was so let down by it, but I just keep thinking about it. I kept thinking about it, and I think I like it more, but I need to sit down and rewatch it. I need to be in the right mindset to watch that thought-provokingly beautiful movie. Like, it feels like a dream when you watch it, but it's a real thing, and it's incredible. And then the last news story that I want to talk about: Alejandro G. Iñárritu, two-time Oscar winner Alejandro G. Iñárritu. Actually, not two-time. He has more than two Oscars. Let's see how many that guy has. Let me do a quick fact check, guys. I just want to make sure I'm doing this right. Let's see. Alejandro G. Iñárritu, Oscar. So he has one, two, three, four. Excuse me. He has four Oscars. He won three for Birdman, and he won one for The Revenant. Alejandro G. Iñárritu won the Best Director Oscar back to back for Birdman and The Revenant, which is insane. That is so cool. Those are definitely two of the best directed films of the past 10 years. Birdman is one of my favorite films of the past decade. It's in my top 10 films of the 2010s. I also really liked The Revenant. I don't think it's the masterpiece that everyone claims it is, but I still really like that movie a lot. I mean, the directing that went into it is absolutely insane, and the way that they made that movie was insane. So I've been waiting for years for Iñárritu to make another film, but I firmly believe that after doing Birdman and The Revenant back to back, the guy deserved a very long break. So now his newest film actually just begun filming, and the title for the movie, the working title, is Limbo. Is currently filming in Mexico City, and it will explore the political and social modernity of Mexico. This is his first movie shot entirely in Mexico City since 2000, with his breakthrough directorial feature debut, Amores Perros. The plot details are under wraps right now. There's no plot for the film, but the cast is led by the actor from Pedro Almodovar's Bad Education, and I think it's also cool that the PD on this film, Eugenio Calboretto, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing these names wrong, he is the guy who won an Oscar for Pan's Labyrinth, but he also worked on Roma, which is that's another good one. But also something that I'm really excited about is the guy that's shooting Alejandro Iñárritu's new movie. So it's not Chivo, it's not Emmanuel Lubezki. Emmanuel Lubezki, I believe, is actually working on the new film from David O. Russell, if I'm not mistaken. He is working on something right now, and he took a long break after The Revenant. But I mean, if anyone deserved a break after that, it was him, because the whole film was shot in natural light. So it's like, but also, he made Birdman prior to that, and that film looks like it was one shot. So the guy went through a lot after winning 3 consecutive cinematography Oscars. Darius Kondichi, he is the guy that's going to be shooting Iñárritu's new movie. And he's a very overlooked cinematographer. He shot films like Lost City of Z. He shot Seven. He recently shot Uncut Gems. This guy, the versatility that this guy has, working with filmmakers like David Fincher and working with the Safdie brothers and working with James Gray. I'm really curious to see the style that he brings to this movie. I'm really curious to see what this film is about and how it plays out. The point is, I'm just really excited for Iñárritu to be directing another film. I think that's great. I think that's really, really exciting because, the guy, we didn't know if he was going to be making something again after The Revenant. We were like, well, maybe it'll be another 10 years because to think of what went into making The Revenant and Birdman too, but mostly The Revenant. I mean, you can imagine the sheer tiredness that Alejandro probably felt. Once he was done, once that film was released, he was like, okay, thank God. And then he had to do all the publicity for it, and then he won all these awards for it. And then as soon as he won the Oscar, he's like, all right, I think that's it. I think I can go to sleep now. I think I can have my rest. I think I'll be great. But yeah, very excited to see how this film plays out. If you guys like Alejandro Iñárritu, tell me down below. There are so many other films in his filmography that I actually have to check out. I haven't seen everything that he's done. Birdman and The Revenant are unfortunately the only things from him that I've seen so far, and I know that just makes me ridiculous. That makes me feel like a stupid fake film fan, but I do want to check out his other work. I've heard nothing but good things about pretty much all the other films that he's directed so far. And I'm sure that this film is going to be something really, really great. I look forward to seeing it, and I cannot wait to hear more about it. So, another big thing that happened in the last week were the Golden Globes. Now, I know that the Golden Globes get a bad flack, and they're not the best. I will agree that sometimes they make weird choices with not just their nominees, but their winners. But I believe that this ceremony, in terms of the film winners, I'm talking strictly about the film winners because I was very far behind on TV this past year. So I could tell you that I didn't watch Ted Lasso or The Crown or all these other acclaimed shows that won all these awards. I think that these Golden Globes, presentation wise, were kind of a mess. I understand with the circumstances of COVID. I think it's cool how they did it by broadcasting some of it live from New York and then the other from LA. I think that was cool. I think that was interesting. But the constant connection problems with Zoom and everything when people were giving their speeches was annoying. And obviously it was out of people's control, but it was just something that just didn't really work. And sometimes some of the jokes weren't funny. Some of the skits that they would do weren't really that great. I thought the Kean Thompson, Maya Rudolph fake music couple thing, I don't think that was good. I think it went on for too long. It just wasn't really funny after a while. But I think they got a lot of these winners right. Daniel Kaluuya winning for Judas and the Black Messiah, that was very deserving. Chadwick Boseman winning for Ma Rainey's Black Bomb, that was really deserving. Nomadland winning director and picture, very well deserving. Chloe Zhao, the fact that she's only the second female to win Best Director at the Golden Globes, and I think the Golden Globes have been around for 80 years. That's depressing. That's so sad. But it's such a deserving win because if you guys haven't watched Nomadland, you gotta do yourself a favor and please watch that right now. It's playing in theaters, but it's also on Hulu, so you guys can watch it from the comfort of your home. It's a really beautiful film and one that has to be seen. It's going to do so well this award season. It's already been doing pretty great. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up taking home the Best Picture Oscar, even though it's not my personal pick. It's not my personal favorite film from 2020, but it was in my top 10, and I've seen it 3 times, and I love it. And you're probably like, you would think for a film that you've seen 3 times would be high on your list. Well, I saw it at the New York Film Festival virtually. And then when Lincoln Center did virtual screeners for it in December of 2020, and I saw it just when it dropped on Hulu a few weeks ago. I'm bummed that I didn't get to see it in theaters. I would have loved to have seen it on the big screen because it is so beautiful to look at. I was about to say so boring, but it's not so boring. It's breathtaking to look at. It's absolutely riveting. So I think the Golden Globes got that right. Soul won Best Animated Feature. That's a very deserving win. That was my personal favorite animated film of 2020, even though it would have been really, really cool if Wolf Walkers took that home, because Wolf Walkers is also incredible and phenomenal and just a beautiful piece of animation. The surprises for me were Jodie Foster winning the Supporting Actress Award. I haven't even seen that movie, but I was surprised because I hadn't really heard much buzz about that performance or really that film in general. So I was really surprised when she won, but she's incredible, Jodie Foster. She's obviously a legend. She's a talented actress, and I love her and everything, but I think that was kind of cool. It's always cool when those award shows pull those kinds of surprises because you don't always want to be correct when you watch an award show and be like, oh, this is so boring because I knew everything coming from a mile away. When Andra Day won for United States versus Billie Holiday, that caught everybody off guard because a lot of people were thinking that it was not going to be her. A lot of people thought maybe it was going to be Frances McDormand for Nomadland or Carrie Mulligan for Promising Young Woman, or maybe in some world Vanessa Kirby for Pieces of a Woman. But instead, it was Andra Day, and that's great. She was really great in that movie. I wasn't personally very blown away by it. Um, I'm not going to really get into why, but her performance was brilliant, and I've never seen her act before. To be honest, I'm not really well rounded with Andra Day, even as a performer, but her acting blew my socks off. And she was incredible. She like disappeared in the role of Billie Holiday. And I'm gonna say this right now, even though she's not my personal favorite actor performance, uh 2020, I wouldn't be angry if she won the Oscar. That's if she gets nominated, but I think this is a good traction for a possible nomination at the Oscars, which the nominations are going to be announced next week, and I'm pretty terrified because I have no idea how they're going to play out. I do believe though that if she were to win, it would be a deserving win. Rosamund Pike win Best Actress in a Comedy for I Care a Lot was also really weird. Not a performance that I particularly loved. She was very good in the movie, but not my favorite of the nominees in that category. I will say that. Borat, subsequent movie film, win Best Comedy. That caught me off guard too. I wasn't anticipating that. I thought they were going to give it to Hamilton because, it's Hamilton and blah, blah, blah. And there's been a whole debacle online being like, oh, should it even be recognized for this award, even though it's just a live performance of a Broadway show? I'm not going to get into that whole debate. You're allowed to have your own opinion when it comes to that topic. But in my humble opinion, I do think it was a deserving nomination. It was weird for sure, but it's the Golden Globes. The Oscars deemed it ineligible, so it's not going to be nominated at the Oscars. It would probably sweep the Emmys. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, overall, the Golden Globes were very interesting. And, most of the time, the Golden Globes are basically like a precursor to the Oscars to give an idea of how the Oscars are going to play out. So I'm really interested to see how this is all going to play out because usually when the Golden Globes happen, most of the time the Oscar nominations had already been announced, but the Oscar nominations haven't even been announced yet. The Golden Globes have happened, and the Oscar nominations haven't even been announced, so we don't even know how that's going to play out. I'm really curious to see how this is all going to unfold. I'm not ready for how this award season is going to play out. So yes, that is it with the Golden Globe winners. That is it with the news. Now it's time for us to get into the quadruple review-a-thon. We have so many movies to go through. I don't even know where to start. I think, personally, that we should start with Coming to America. Coming to America. Oh my goodness. Here we go with Coming to America. The African monarch Akeem learns he has a long lost son in the United States and must return to America to meet this unexpected heir and build a relationship with his son. So, it's a pretty simple plot. It's nothing extravagant. It's nothing really different from the first movie. Um, so this is a sequel that's been in the works for a long time. Coming to America 2 has been talked about for God knows how long. I mean, I wasn't even born when the first Coming to America came out. Coming to America came out in 1988, 33 years ago. So just 10 years before I was born, this movie came out in theaters. Coming to America is definitely my personal favorite 80s comedy starring Eddie Murphy. I like Beverly Hills Cop. I like Trading Places. I even like 48 Hours. I love Eddie Murphy. I think he's great. He's a very talented actor. He's a wonderful comedian, and his presence on screen has always been something that I've admired since I was a kid. Obviously, with watching films like Shrek and Mulan, and then growing up to watch these films, Beverly Hills Cop, Coming to America, 48 Hours, Trading Places. And then you even see him in dramas. When I saw Dreamgirls for the first time, I was so blown away by that performance that I could not believe that he had that level of range in him, where he played this musician that was so beloved, but he had a secret drug addiction. And it was heartbreaking to watch, especially considering the fact that you saw this lovable presence like Eddie Murphy playing this character. And he was nominated for an Oscar for the film, and he didn't even win. And that's honestly one of the biggest Oscar upsets, in my opinion. Like, in the years that I've been alive, I'm disappointed that he didn't win the Oscar for Dreamgirls, and he hasn't even been nominated for one since. So, with Coming to America, I was excited to see this film because of the talent involved with the film. Now, Craig Brewer is the guy that decided to take the helm for the sequel. John Landis directed the first film, but he hasn't directed a film in God knows how long. So Craig Brewer decided to hop on to this film and direct it. Now, he and Eddie Murphy have collaborated before. They collaborated on the absolutely fantastic Dolomite Is My Name from 2019. That was a film that came out on Netflix about Rudy Ray Moore making a movie called Dolomite, and it received critical acclaim. It got some award nominations. So, because they probably had so much fun making Dolomite together, they decide, oh, hey, let's collaborate on another movie together. Let's do Coming to America 2, except it's called Coming to America, which I don't like. Just call it Coming to America 2. Oh, God, why'd you call it Coming to America? God, so lazy. But I mean, Coming to America 2 might also be lazy. It beats me, honestly. So this film was supposed to come out in theaters, obviously. It was supposed to come out, I looked this up, it was supposed to come out actually December 18th, 2020 in theaters. It was going to be released by Paramount. They had already shot the movie. They finished it back in late 2019. And when COVID started, we had no idea when this movie was going to come out. So then they decided to just push it back. And then Amazon bought the rights to the film for over $120 million, which is crazy to believe. Again, this is another situation where a streaming service picks up a film that was intended for theaters and puts it on their service, which is very fascinating for sure. So it was coming out a week before my birthday, and I'm like, okay, cool. And the trailers I thought were pretty funny, although I kept my expectations pretty low after I saw the trailers because I'm like, okay, I really hope they didn't show all the funny moments in the trailer. I hope that they're saving all the good jokes for the movie. And let me just say that most of the time, comedy sequels don't work. I think we could all agree that generally the worst sequels are comedy sequels. But also, the majority of the sequels that don't work are sequels to films that came out more than 10 years ago. There have been a few exceptions for good sequels that have come out to films that have come out, excuse me, 30 years prior. I think the biggest example is Blade Runner 2049. Obviously, that's a completely different film. That's it's a sci-fi film. This is a comedy, so it's different. But when Blade Runner 2049 came out, I think everyone was just surprised by how good it was and how it surpasses, to me, surpasses the first film. And, you know, they should have made Coming to America 2 maybe like not too long after the first film came out. But it is definitely interesting to see Akeem in modern day. It's very interesting to see that transition from the 80s to the 2020s. And I will tell you that there are moments in this film that did make me laugh. I enjoyed seeing all the characters come back from the first film. I enjoyed seeing Hakeem and Semi and Lisa and James Earl Jones and John Amos and all these other people and the barbers from the barber shop. I enjoyed seeing the characters from the first film. But if I'm being completely honest with myself, this is pretty similar to the first film. It doesn't do anything different. The film has its moments where it made me laugh. And I could tell you right now that everybody involved with this movie probably had the time of their life making this. It didn't look like everyone was there just for money. It looked like everyone was there to, do it because they wanted to do it. I don't think Eddie Murphy would have agreed to do this if he didn't want to do it. There was probably a point where Eddie Murphy's like, no, I don't want to do a Coming to America sequel. Because, he did two Beverly Hills Cop sequels. He did a 48 Hours sequel. And then I guess if you want to include the Shrek sequels, he did those too. He didn't come back for Daddy Day Camp. Do you guys remember that? He did Daddy Daycare, but he wasn't in Daddy Day Camp, which is considered by a lot of people one of the worst films ever made. Not Daycare, Day Camp, where Cuba Gooding Jr. played the Eddie Murphy character. I haven't seen it myself, but I'm sure it's a piece of turd. But with Coming to America, I felt that for a film that was, about an hour and 45 minutes, it was almost 2 hours long. The breeze that the first film had, where it flowed very well, it was very quick and moved very fast. The jokes were frantic and energetic. Everyone was just on their A game. This film lacks that. The film starts, and I was beginning to question it. I'm like, okay, I don't know where this is going to go in terms of the jokes. So then when Hakeem goes to New York to meet his son, I think it just lost me from there. I was still interested, but I wasn't as into it as I wanted to be. Now, there was never a moment where I'm like, I want to shut this movie off. I'm bored and everything. My big thing was that I just didn't laugh a lot during this movie. And that's the big thing with a comedy. If a comedy doesn't make you laugh, then it fails to do its job. I know there are people out there that have enjoyed this movie, and that's great. That's awesome and everything. I don't think this is a piece of crap like some people are calling it to be. I don't think it's the worst comedy sequel ever made. I think it's actually a lot better than most of the comedy sequels that we've gotten in the past 10 years. There are a few exceptions, obviously. But when you think about like Dumb and Dumber 2 and Little Fockers, and I'm trying to think of comedy sequels that came out like 10 years after the original. Although with Little Fockers, they did have a sequel that came out in between, like 3 or 4 years in between. I don't know the math on the top of my head, but with Coming to America, I kept thinking in the long run, this wasn't really necessary. This wasn't needed. Although I was entertained at certain points, there was nothing about this movie that made me think that it was needed. I was happy to see the characters back. I'm glad that Eddie Murphy's having this little resurgence in his career, especially after Dolomite Is My Name, which I thought was one of the best performances of that year. I thought he was robbed of an Oscar nomination for it, but then again, the best actor race is always stacked, so it's impossible to like pick a definitive person to be in there and everything. It's a wild thing. It's a whole crazy scenario. But this film just it felt the same as the first one. The character of his son, trying to remember the name, Jermaine Fowler played his son in the movie. And I have to say, I think the cast, everyone did a good job. The OG cast members, I thought all of them did pretty good. And then the new cast members, for the most part, I would say were pretty good. Jermaine Fowler, I think he did a good job. Leslie Jones, I'm usually hit or miss on her. I thought she did good too. Tracy Morgan, I thought was hilarious in this. Kiki Lane from If Beale Street Could Talk and The Old Guard, she is becoming one of my favorites working today. She actually plays one of Hakeem's daughters in the movie. And, I thought her story was so interesting because she really wants to be the heir to the throne, but the way Sumunda's rules are is that there's a male heir, not a female heir. And Hakeem's all about tradition, even though deep down he knows that his daughter would make a perfect queen for the kingdom once Hakeem, I don't know why I keep saying Hakeem passes on. So I liked that story, and I wish they went through that a bit more. But instead, they focused on the son, and then he started this bond with this one girl who works for Hakeem and everything. But then he's supposed to possibly marry the daughter of Wesley Snipes, who is so good in this movie. Oh my God, he stole every scene that he was in. Similar to Dolomite Is My Name, he stole every single scene that he was in this movie. He was so friggin' funny. Oh my God. I'm still blown away that Wesley Snipes has this level of comedic range inside of him that I personally never thought we would ever get out of him. The fact that Blade is this funny, I love it. I wanted a whole spinoff with General Aziz. I think that's his name. Wesley Snipes' character. He should have had more screen time. He was great when he was on screen. He stole the movie when he was on screen. He just wasn't in the movie as much as I would have liked him to be. And that's disappointing because I don't know like where this comedic talent was for the longest time, but I could see Wesley Snipes having maybe a slightly successful career in comedies, and I would like to see him do more comedies. Yeah, the cast did good. It was a very well shot movie. It looked good. It was competently made, but my favorite thing about the film, and something that if anyone says anything bad about, I will fight you. Ruth Carter's costumes. Ruth Carter is one of the best costume designers in the industry, period. She is legendary. She did the costume work on the first Coming to America. Now she's back doing it for the sequel. And oh my God, the costumes look so good. They are so beautiful. They are so rich. They are insane. Oscar nominee right there for the costumes. She won an Academy Award for doing the costumes on Black Panther. And even if you don't like Black Panther, the costumes in that, wow, just incredible. Absolutely incredible stuff. So, the costumes, the sets, and then the makeup and hairstyling, all fantastic. The makeup work on Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall when they play the different characters and everything, I thought that they still looked good. Well, granted, I mean, when you play older men, you're going to kind of look similar to how you were in 88. So when Eddie Murphy played the white guy in the barbershop, the makeup looks the exact same, probably because, it's probably the same makeup team, and I would like to think so. But yeah, on a technical level, I thought this film was very well made. The costumes were my favorite aspect of the whole film. Just phenomenal stuff. Truly, truly incredible stuff. There are some heartfelt moments. There are some funny moments in Coming to America. But in the long run, this was a letdown for me. I think that there are people out there that are going to have a good time with this. If you're interested in seeing this film, I would say give it a watch, especially if you're a fan of the original Coming to America, and if you're a fan of Eddie Murphy, definitely give this film a watch. It's available right now on Amazon Prime. I'm going to give it 2.5 out of 5 stars. Not the worst film in the world, not the best film either, but it was a letdown for me, truly. And I'm really curious to know more people's thoughts on this film. So if you guys have any thoughts on Coming to America, tell me in the comments or reach out on social media. Just tell me your thoughts on the sequel to Coming to America. Now, moving on to the next review that we're going to be talking about, we are going to be talking about the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run. After SpongeBob's beloved pet snail Gary is snail napped, he and Patrick embark on an epic journey to the lost city of Atlantic City to bring Gary home. As I stated early on in this episode, I grew up with SpongeBob. SpongeBob's been a big part of my entire life. I mean, SpongeBob is 22 years old. I'm about to turn 23. This show has been around my whole life. This character has been around my whole life. SpongeBob is the Mickey Mouse of Nickelodeon. He is the symbol for Nickelodeon. When you think of Nickelodeon, right away you're going to think about SpongeBob. They have made 3 SpongeBob movies. They made the SpongeBob SquarePants movie in 2004, the SpongeBob movie Sponge Out of Water in 2015, and here we are with Sponge on the Run, the 3rd SpongeBob movie. So this is also the first SpongeBob movie that's entirely in CGI, because the first movie was entirely hand-drawn. The second movie was about 80% hand-drawn and then 20% CGI. That third act in Sponge Out of Water was all CGI. Now this movie's entirely CGI, so this is a completely new thing for SpongeBob, since the show still airs with the traditional 2D animation, but this is a completely new thing for SpongeBob. This was a film that was supposed to come out in theaters last year, and it was actually released by Netflix overseas late last year, and it makes its debut as the big launch title, one of the big launch titles for Paramount Plus. I saw this film back in January, courtesy of Netflix, so I thank them for that. Bless. I'm not going to say how, but I saw it in January. SpongeBob has always been something that I've loved. Again, I grew up loving it. It's something I still watch. Not the new episodes. I watch the old episodes all the time. They still hold up very well for me. They're so funny and so clever. Steven Hillenburg, God rest his soul. What a genius, truly. Those first few seasons of SpongeBob are really, really magical. And then the first SpongeBob movie, I think, is incredible as well. I also really liked the second one. I went into it with pretty low expectations, and I ended up being really surprised by it, because a lot of it felt like original SpongeBob. So I was really hoping that this third one was going to be good as well. But I was also curious to see how it was going to play out, since Steven Hillenburg obviously is no longer with us. And I know that he was somewhat involved with this movie before he had passed away. But I was really curious to see how this film was going to play out. I would have liked to have seen this in theaters, because I will tell you right off the bat, the animation, oh my God, it looks great. It looks incredible. The detail put into everything here is so riveting to look at. The facial expressions, the scope, it's so colorful and it's so cartoony. It just pops. The animation pops and it looks beautiful. A plus to the animation, 5 out of 5 for the animation. Like, if you're judging solely on the animation and say this film was a silent film and you were just looking at the animation, it looks great. I love the look of this film, and I really think that they nailed the animation. I wish that I could say that I loved the rest of this film, but this is another one that just really let me down tremendously. Not an awful movie, not a great movie either. I know that there are people out there that are really surprisingly liking this movie, and that's great. That's awesome. I'm very happy that people are liking this new SpongeBob movie, but personally for me, it really just didn't do much for me. I have a lot of problems with the film, and I'll get into it without spoiling stuff, because I have to be really careful about not spoiling anything for anybody. I will tell you this right off the bat. Sponge on the Run's plot is pretty simple, and that's not a problem at all. When you read deep down into the plot, it's like, what? So, King Neptune, Poseidon, I think it's King Neptune. Basically, he's running out of facial moisturizer to make him look young. And I'm like, okay, sure, that's kind of funny and everything. But the thing that's weird about the whole thing is that Gary, his mucus is what apparently is like the best facial moisturizer, something along those lines. So King Neptune just kidnaps Gary, and then SpongeBob and Patrick have to go rescue him. And I'm like, you kidnapped a snail just to make yourself look younger? That's so weird. But I mean, hey, SpongeBob has a lot of weird things to it, so I mean, I shouldn't be surprised. A lot of the jokes were hit or miss for me. There were plenty of jokes that I did find funny, but if I'm gonna be honest, most of them were misses for me. Um, I couldn't really comprehend why some of the jokes didn't work for me. I just think that after a while it got stale and repetitive. But there are some really clever adult jokes thrown throughout this movie that made me chuckle. Some did make me guffaw. I will admit that and everything. But then there's also all these cameos, and I felt that a lot of them really didn't need to happen. Like, a lot of them really didn't work. They go to a tavern at one point, and Snoop Dogg starts rapping, and I'm like, excuse me? What is there a significant piece? Is there a reason why this is supposed to be here? Like, no, what? I guess a lot of kids now, the generation of kids now, like the 10-year-olds and everything, they listen to Snoop Dogg. When I was 10 years old, I didn't listen to Snoop Dogg, but I mean, you know, back then when I was 10, there was no iPhones, there was no Spotify or Apple Music or anything. Like, everything was different. Smartphones were just becoming a thing when I was 10 years old, but they weren't, being used by 10-year-olds. Now everybody has a smartphone. I've seen 5-year-olds with smartphones, and I'm like, excuse me? Like, what? Why do you have a phone? You're 5. Who are you gonna call? Your babysitter? Like, what? Why do you need a phone? Explain that to me, please. So, yeah, that threw me off, and some of the voice cameos too just didn't click with me. The one cameo that worked, and you've seen it in the trailers, is Keanu Reeves as Sage. He is literally, you see his face in a tumbleweed, and it's awesome. And there's a lot of great sequences with him. Honestly, every time he was on screen was awesome. And I was worried that after a while it would get tiring. Even though I love Keanu Reeves, I was worried that the joke was going to become stale after a while, but it honestly didn't. Although at the same time, I didn't find any necessity to it being a thing, but I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt because it's Keanu Reeves and he is awesome in everything that he's in, and he is a god and he is a legend and he's Keanu Reeves. And the resurgence that he's been making these past few years has been great. I mean, the fact that he has done a whole new trilogy of movies in John Wick. He did Bill and Ted 3. He did Toy Story 4. He is now doing The Matrix 4. He's making another John Wick movie. He was in Cyberpunk. He's in this movie. It's like, damn, dude, you're on fire right now. But I mean, he's Keanu Reeves, and he could do anything that he wants. He could act in whatever he wants, a comedy, drama, sci-fi, thriller, western, horror movie. He could do anything he wants because he's Keanu Reeves and he is a god, and that's just how it works. But yeah, biggest con with me, just really didn't find this funny. Although, if I'm going to be honest, in its core, Sponge on the Run is just a 90-minute trailer for Camp Coral. Now, I brought up that I watched the pilot for Camp Coral. I haven't seen the other episodes. There were a few episodes that dropped on Paramount Plus. I haven't gone around to watching them yet. I will tell you that the pilot was not awful. It was different for SpongeBob, but it wasn't awful. But my thing that bugged me about Sponge on the Run was that it was just a big trailer for Camp Coral when it should have just been its own separate movie. And I understand that it's trying to tie into this new show that's being released and everything. I just felt it took away a lot from my enjoyment of this movie because the sequences where it's just the regular story of them going to try to find Gary, I don't think it was the most riveting thing in the world, but I was still intrigued with what was going on. Those flashbacks just really weren't that good to me. And, I'm not a person that likes to complain about canon in movies or shows or games or anything, but with this, it really ticks me off a lot because, yes, SpongeBob did meet some of these people when he was younger, but he didn't meet Sandy at this camp. He met Sandy in the second episode of the show when he was on Jellyfish Fields and she was being attacked by a clam. That's when they met, not when they were kids. So that basically throws away the canon that Steven Hillenburg set up and tosses it to the side like it's nothing. And it's like Nickelodeon is stomping on his legacy as if it was nothing. Do you guys not realize what Steven Hillenburg did for your channel? Yeah, you had some popular shows and everything, but with what he did with SpongeBob, that changed the game for cartoons on TV. SpongeBob was a very mature show, but also it was very great for kids. It was able to balance out humor for the kids and adults. You could be an adult watching SpongeBob and find it hilarious. You could be a kid watching it and you'll obviously find it hilarious. And then the adult jokes will fly over your head. And then when you grow up, people are like, oh my God, that is so clever that they said that. I don't know how they got away with it, but wow. I don't like when movies or TV shows capitalize on other things as just like a way of being like, oh, this is happening, blah, blah, blah. Like, why? What was the point of this movie just being a big teaser for Camp Coral? And again, I know there are people out there that are liking this movie, and that's great, but those flashback sequences were the weakest aspect of the movie. And it really, really would just it made me feel sour as I was watching this movie. It just soured my interest in the film. I was watching and I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Then the flashbacks happen. I'm like, oh, this sucks. But hey, I mean, again, it was a beautifully animated movie and the message was nice and everything. There was a whole third act thing where they're all like saying why they love SpongeBob and everything. And yeah, it was moving and I got a little teary eyed. I'm not going to lie because, I grew up with this little yellow sponge, but I just didn't find those flashback sequences all that great. I found them very meandering after a while. And it just really took away my interest in the film. But there are still plenty of moments to enjoy in Sponge on the Run. Some of the comedy does hit. The animation is gorgeous. Some of the music choices that they have too is really, really interesting. And hey, they really nailed the look of Atlantic City. Although, if I'm going to be honest, I live in Jersey. Atlantic City is not that nice compared to how they make it in this movie. But, how they tackled, a gambling addiction. SpongeBob becomes a gambler. Basically becomes Howard Ratner from Uncut Gems. He just makes bets and everything. And it's just like, dude, what are you doing? I wanted to see him battle with Howard Ratner. Oh my God, what a film that would be. But yeah, Sponge on the Run, not the best movie, not the worst movie either. Big disappointment though. Not as big of a disappointment for me as Coming to America was. So this is going to be another 2.5 out of 5 stars. This is available right now on Paramount Plus. It's also available to rent via PVOD. So if you want to pay money to watch it, if you don't have Paramount Plus, you could do that. If you want to just wait for it to be free somewhere, watch it. If you have Paramount Plus, check it out there. If you have other ways of watching it, do whatever you want to do. I'm not going to encourage you to do certain things and do this and do that, but I'd be really curious to hear people's thoughts on this movie, especially if you're a fan of SpongeBob, if you grew up loving this show, and if you're a fan of those two movies prior. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run. So now we're going to go into the next anime movie that came out this weekend, and that is Raya and the Last Dragon. In a realm known as Kumandra, a reimagined Earth inhabited by an ancient civilization, a warrior named Raya is determined to find the last dragon. Honestly, that's a good thing to say. I don't really want to spoil much more about this movie. If you guys haven't watched any trailers or any commercials or anything, I would say go into this movie as blind as possible. I did that myself. I didn't watch a single trailer for this movie. I saw images, and that's all I needed to see. So this is the newest film from Disney. This is directed by Don Hall. Don Hall is a guy that's collaborated with Disney before. He is the guy that directed, and I completely am blanking on the name of the movies that he directed. So he directed. Here we go. So he directed Winnie the Pooh from 2011, which is super underappreciated and no one ever talks about. And that movie's like an hour long and it's great and it holds up very, very well. Turns 10 this year, later this year. Can't wait to talk about that down the road. And he directed Big Hero 6, which is another great film from Disney. But Don Hall co-directed this with a man named Carlos Lopez Estrada. Now, if any of you cinephiles, film dweebs, film geeks out there know that name, and you know who I'm talking about, but if you don't know that name, and I'm not going to blame you if you don't know that name because I didn't know the name right away. This is the guy who directed the critically beloved film from 2018 that not many people talk about. Even though it got all this acclaim from critics, it was so overlooked by pretty much all the award shows and no one really talked about it, and that's Blind Spotting. Blind Spotting was one of the best films of 2018, and that was, I believe, Carlos's directorial debut. So it's very cool to see him go from directing something live action to being a director on an anime film, especially for Disney. That's an awesome achievement. I always find it cool whenever filmmakers decide to direct animation. I I thought about this the other day. I would love Martin Scorsese, excuse me. I would love Martin Scorsese to direct an animated film. That would be so cool. Spielberg's done it already. And, Robert Zemeckis has done it. Wes Anderson has done it. Brad Bird has directed both live action and animation, and he's a primarily animated director. Andrew Stanton directed a whole bunch of anime films, and he directed a live action film. This Carlos Lopez Estrada guy, the fact that he's going from something very deep like Blind Spot to doing something fun and exciting like Raya and the Last Dragon, that's an awesome transition and one that I'm all for. So going into this film, I was looking forward to it because I love Disney's animated films. There are a few of them that haven't won me over, but this was one that sounded completely up my alley. I'm a fan of anything with dragons, so I was like, I'm sold. I'm very excited for this. And the cast behind this film is really, really exciting too because this contains a primarily Asian cast. We have Kelly Marie Tran headline the cast as Raya, and I do like her, even though I don't care for the character of Rose in Star Wars. I like Kelly Marie Tran's charisma and charm and likability, so I was really excited that she was going to be headlining a Disney anime film. We also have Aquafina here. We have Gemma Chan, Daniel Day Kim, Benedict Wong, Sandra Oh. Really good cast of. This is a good cast, and I was really excited to see this film. And I have to tell you that I was really blown away by this. I loved this movie very much, and it's definitely one of the better Disney animated films in recent memory. It's honestly one that I haven't been able to stop thinking about since I saw it. I went to the theaters to go see this. This is playing both in theaters and it's on Disney Plus right now, but you have to pay an extra fee if you're going to be watching it on Disney Plus. I would personally suggest, if you don't want to pay a fee and if you feel comfortable going to the movies, definitely go out and support the movie theaters and see this film. If you just want to wait until it becomes free on Disney Plus, I'm not sure on the top of my head when that's going to happen, but I'm sure it's going to be within the next 3 to 4 months. It's worth the wait, but it's also worth the money. However much you spend on this movie, it's worth it. But I'm grateful I got to see it on the big screen. So let's just talk about this movie. So right off the bat, I'm gonna start with the animation. Disney. You could say whatever you want about the films that they put out. You could say that they're not your cup of tea. You could say that they're not the best animations right now. Maybe story wise, they're not the greatest animations ever. But in terms of animation, period, like the way the films are animated, the way the films look, it's absolutely riveting. The detail that is put into every single aspect of the animation, especially in this film, is so riveting to watch. The hair, the eyes, the tears, the water. Oh my God. I have to say that the texture of water in animation is like really hard. That's probably one of the hardest things to animate perfectly, and yet it looks like real water. The scope of this movie is so breathtaking. There are many images that, I kid you not, could be a beautiful computer background. If you guys are subscribed to this channel on YouTube called The Beauty of, this channel is really excellent, and you guys should go subscribe to them if you haven't already. They post videos of cinematography from certain films with music over it, and it's just like, wow, you forget how beautiful some of these films look. And Raya and the Last Dragon is one of the best looking Disney films to date, but I feel like every time Disney puts out a film, they just get better looking and better looking and better looking. Their animation evolves as their careers evolve, as their filmography evolves. And this is no exception. This is truly breathtaking animation. And it was so gorgeous to look at. I saw this in IMAX too, so the picture was already even better looking, and then the sound was incredible. And it's like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the look of this animation, the detail. It blew me away. And honestly, some of the frames here reminded me of something out of like an Akira Kurosawa movie, or I forgot the guy's name who did Samurai Jack. It reminded me of something that he would have made too. Like just the frames and the imagery, I was just like, oh my God, this is so cool. This was so cool. I love this so much. I don't know how they do at Disney, but the animation here, A plus plus, truly, just perfect. Love it. Mwah, chef's kiss. Now, to go into the story, I thought the story was very moving. I thought it was a very entertaining movie overall. I thought it was very exciting and enthralling. I really liked the concept of all these kingdoms coming together. And I'm not going to say too much more, but I love the world building of this film. And, you know, you could think to yourself, oh, this might be a bit too much. But in my humble opinion, with how it's executed, it just works so well. I love the characters here, and I love the story of it. And it's a very moving story, too. As usual, Disney just knows how to, like, get you to cry and be moved. And I got very emotional during this movie. And I just thought the emotional weight of it was really, really well executed. I thought the screenplay for this was really great. I thought all the characters were very well developed. I understood where they were coming from, each and every one of them. I thought everyone was very well developed overall. And again, the world building was great. It was great. Now, the voice casting across the board, everybody's terrific. Kelly Marie Tran, she's awesome. She really immerses herself in this role of Raya. But Shisu, Sisu, I'm trying to remember her name, how they pronounce it. The dragon, she's voiced by Aquafina. And Aquafina is becoming someone that I'm actually starting to like a lot more. I think after I saw The Farewell, I began to really become a fan of her. I would love for her to do another straight up drama, but I think that her comedic presence works very well in this film, and she owns this role. She is great. She is great. She is funny. The character steals a lot of the scenes in the movie, and I thought all of her jokes made me laugh. Just the timing, the comedic timing here was done so well. And most of the time with these Disney films, I do laugh at a lot of them, but there are times where the comedy could be hit or miss. But I thought the comedy here, especially from this character, was 100% hit after hit after hit after hit. There wasn't any misses with this character in terms of the comedy. And I thought the character overall was very beautifully done. Like the animation wise and story wise, I loved it. I loved the voice acting in this film. Daniel Day Kim, great. Gemma Chan, she was great. Sandra Oh, great. Benedict Wong, he was hilarious. He was great. And there's this kid, and I don't want to pronounce Isaac Wayne. I don't want to pronounce his name wrong. He plays the character of Boone. So great. Very, very enjoyable and very adorable little character. And then there's this little baby, and the baby was so cute, and she was so funny, and she was very wild and freaky, and I just really, really admired that. Oh my god. Yeah, I thought this story was just so mature and really, really like heavy on the emotion. And it was able to balance comedy and drama beautifully. And that's a hard thing to do with any movie or show. Balancing two different genres with one another. It could all feel forced and very gimmicky, but luckily with Raya and the Last Dragon, the comedy and drama meshes well terrifically. Now, if I had any flaws with the movie, and I have some flaws, I felt that the pacing at times was a little all over the place, and there were some character decisions done at the end that left me feeling a little bit conflicted. And I'm not going to spoil anything, obviously, because I want you guys to go into this movie knowing as little as possible. Plus, I don't want to spoil what happens at the end of the movie. But there is a particular character in this film, and I'm not going to spoil who it is, but her motives left me feeling cold. And the way that her character arc wrapped up, I thought it was interesting, but for the most part, it's like, okay, let's just relax. Let's calm down. Like, there were sequences with that character that really weren't as compelling as the stuff going on with Raya. And because of that, there was a good chunk of this movie where we focused just on this character. And I'm like, well, it's not as good as when Raya's on screen. It's not terrible, but it's not as good. It's not as compelling. Otherwise, though, I thought this film was really great, and it's another great entry in Disney's catalog, and it's one that honestly everybody needs to check out. And I'm very excited to see how it does. I haven't really looked at how it's been doing at the box office. I'm sure it's been doing pretty well on Disney Plus. I'm going to tell you right now, this is worth spending the extra money on more than Mulan. Mulan was a piece of crap. This is not a piece of crap. This is a great film, one that everybody should see, Disney fan or not. This is one that's worth checking out. Everybody's going to enjoy it. Kids, adults, teens, everyone's going to enjoy it. It's going to be a great watch for the whole family. 4 out of 5 stars for Raya and the Last Dragon. Please check this film out. Support animation. Support this film. Please, please support Raya and the Last Dragon. It's one of Disney's best films in a long time, and I just adored it. It's very hard to watch this movie and not at least like it. So if you've seen Raya and the Last Dragon, let me know down below your thoughts on this film. Let me know wherever you want about Raya and the Last Dragon. And now we're going to talk about one more movie. We have one more to go, and that is Chaos Walking, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, this is going to be fun to get into for sure. Two unlikely companions embark on the wild adventure through the badlands of an unexplored planet as they try to escape a dangerous and disorienting reality where all inner thoughts are seen and heard by everyone. So, Chaos Walking is very, very interesting. This is in a world where it's all men, just men, and their inner thoughts are heard by everybody. You could be quiet and try to control your thoughts, but everyone's going to hear your thoughts. That's how it's going to be for everybody. It all changes when one day this woman crashes on the planet and everyone's like, oh my God, a girl, 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 girl. So we have Tom Holland starring in the film as a character named Todd Hewitt. Says his name probably more times. If you were to take a shot every time that he said his name, you would probably be dead because he says his name about 100 times in the period of 2 hours, maybe even more than 100 times. I'm not even exaggerating at all. And the girl that crashes on the planet, her name is Viola, and she is played by Daisy Ridley. And I'm gonna be honest, I mean, if you were a guy in this situation as Todd, and the first girl you ever saw in your life is Daisy Ridley, yeah, I probably have a hard time controlling my thoughts as well because Daisy Ridley, she's so pretty and she is so cute, and she is very easy to have a crush on. So the cast here is incredible. I mean, this is a very, very big cast of actors. And let me tell you that the cast here is insane. We have Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley headline the film, like I said. We also have Mads Mikkelsen, Cynthia Erivo, Damien Bajir, Nick Jonas, and David Oyelowo. And the guy that directed this film is Doug Liman, the director of films like Edge of Tomorrow, The Bourne Identity, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Swingers, Jumper, American Made. What a weird range of films that this guy's directed. He also directed a film earlier this year called Lockdown, which was terrible. So is Chaos Walking going to be another terrible entry from Doug Liman? It is terrible, unfortunately. So this film has a very interesting production behind it. So this film was actually shot in 2017. It was supposed to come out in early 2019, but when people saw the film, they're like, oh my God, this is terrible. This is a terrible film that shouldn't come out at all, blah, blah, blah. So then they did some reshoots for the film, and then COVID happened. And now we have this film set in this crazy world come out during a pandemic, which is actually kind of terrifying when you think about it, that this movie is being released during a global pandemic. It's kind of scary when you watch a dystopian film set, like in the world that it's set in, being released during a global catastrophe. So yeah, this film was not very good. Unfortunately, this was a complete misfire. There are some saving graces to the film. Not too many, though, unfortunately. But I will say that this movie saves itself from being 100% terrible because of the performances from Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley. I thought together they worked off each other very, very well. I liked their chemistry with one another, and I liked both of them individually. I like them both as actors. I really like Tom Holland. I think he's starting to showcase his true acting chops outside of Marvel. I do like him as Spider-Man. I've liked him in movies like The Impossible. I really liked The Devil All the Time. I thought that movie was really, really good, and Tom Holland's performance was absolutely incredible. And I'm really curious to see how this movie Cherry plays out. I know it's been coming out in select theaters. It isn't out yet for everybody. It comes out this week on Apple TV Plus, so I am very interested to see how that film plays out. But everybody has been saying that his performance in that is absolutely incredible. I thought he did good here. And Daisy Ridley, I've liked her in a lot of the stuff that I've seen her in. Although, to be fair, I've only seen her, I think, in maybe, let's see, 3 Star Wars movies. And I think 1 non-Star Wars movie. Besides this, what was that movie? The train movie, Murder on the Orient Express. But I do like her. Again, she's very cute, but she is very talented. And say what you want about the character of Rey in Star Wars. You could like her or hate her, but she is a very good actress, and she's very good as that character. Her acting is really, really good. So them together, I really like their chemistry with one another. And Mads Mikkelsen also deserves a shout out because Mads Mikkelsen is the man. He is awesome in everything that he is in. If you guys have not watched Another Round yet, you need to do yourself a favor and please check that out because that film is something else, and Matt's performance in it is unbelievable, and he also dances in that movie, and it just makes you go, wow, this guy is a chameleon. He could do anything because he is Mads Mikkelsen. I would say that those 3 actors are the best thing about the movie. some of the fight sequences are well done. Doug Liman has directed action before. I mean, a lot of the movies that he's directed involve action. I think Edge of Tomorrow is the best thing he's ever made. So the hand-to-hand combat that he had in that was really, really impressive. And the funny thing is with this movie, the action wasn't really hard to watch. It wasn't very shaky cam or anything. The action sequences were fine. They were very well done. This is a very well made movie, on a technical level. I think that the way that it's, shot and the visual effects, not terrible. I maybe because they probably had so much time to rework this film. I don't know what it would have been like if the movie came out in 2019 like anticipated. But I do think that on a technical level, this is a pretty decently made movie. And otherwise, that's it. Everything else about this movie falls flat. I 100% think that the storyline was not executed very well. I think the concept is very, very cool. I haven't read the book that this film is based on, so I'm not going to be like, oh, this is faithful to the book. This is not faithful to the book. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to be that kind of guy who compares the book to the movie. Listen, if this movie's faithful to the book, great, awesome, wonderful. But I'm not going to be sitting here and being like, wow, this wasn't faithful to the book whatsoever. Because I haven't read the book, so I can't comment on that. I'm only judging the movie, boys and girls. And this movie to me just didn't work. I thought the story was so boring. This movie was a slog to watch. It it was moving at a snail's pace. And my thing is, I don't mind movies that go slow. I don't mind those kinds of movies, especially if they're interesting. The worst kinds of movies for me are the movies that are boring. When a movie is boring, it just takes so much out of you. You get tired really quickly, you get drained very quickly, and you're just like, I want to go. Because there are movies you could watch that are deemed bad, but you're entertained by them. Like, I'm going to be honest, Cats is a piece of crap. It's one of the worst movies I personally maybe have ever seen. But it's entertaining. Well, to be fair, when I saw it, I was drunk out of my mind, so I can't even imagine watching that movie sober. But Chaos Walking was just so dull and lifeless, and just these actors were trying. You could tell that they were trying, and I think Doug Liman was also trying too. I don't know what he was trying to go for with this film, and part of me wonders if Doug Liman's even proud of this movie, because I haven't seen really any people promoting this movie, which is disappointing because the talent that they have in this film is really great. They have a good director behind it. They have a good cast with it too. And at one point, Charlie Kaufman wrote the script for this movie. Yes, Oscar winner Charlie Kaufman, who wrote Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Adaptation. He directed Synecdoche, New York. He directed Anomalisa. He directed I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Charlie Kaufman is one of the best writers in the industry right now. So I don't know what his draft of the script was like. They didn't even give him like story credit or executive producer credit. Like, his name's not in the credits for this film at all. One of the writers of this film, one of the credit writers, is Patrick Ness, who wrote the book that this film is based on. He also wrote A Monster Calls, which that movie was great. I love that movie, but this, oh God. And this is actually the first book in a trilogy that this movie's based on. And obviously, there's no way that they're making, the other two. And it is sad because it's like, Tom Holland, Daisy Ridley, headline the trilogy. Like, that's cool. That's awesome. They're awesome people on camera and off camera. They're great. And I love them. And I'm bummed that they may never make a movie together again. And, the idea of them playing, possible lovers, they're both attractive people. And then there are sequences where Tom Holland takes off his shirt, and I'm like, oh, why can't I be that buff? Like, why do you have to show off that you're so muscular, Tom? Oh, I'm Spider-Man. Like, stop it. But yes, story-wise, very dull, very boring, very lifeless. Just took so much energy out of me. Pacing-wise, awfully paced. This movie's only 100 minutes long. It feels like it's 180 minutes. I thought The Irishman moved faster than this, and that movie's 3.5 hours. This movie is, almost 2 hours shorter than The Irishman, and this movie just like felt like a slog to get through. It felt like a chore to get through, and I don't want to watch a movie and say that it felt like a chore because I love watching movies and I love supporting filmmakers. I went to school for film and I just love making a movie is a very difficult task and some people don't realize that. I went to school for film. I made some short films when I was at school and it's a lot. It's very time consuming. You waste your time, your money, you put a lot of effort and passion into making a movie and I don't know what happened when they made this movie. I don't know if everyone is even satisfied with this movie. The cast, the crew, I don't know. I haven't really looked into it, but I would like to hope that when they made this movie, they were having a good time because, again, there's a lot of good people attached to this movie at front and behind the camera. And yet, this was just a misfire. And I was hoping that this wasn't going to be the New Mutants of 2021, film that was made so long ago and then gotten pushed back. And then obviously, the circumstances of what happened in the world made it get pushed back even more. And now they're just like, all right, we're just going to drop it now and just have it out. Like, we can't have this film in our vault for so long. I mean, this film was shot in 2017. So do you guys want to know something? This film was shot before Tom Holland shot Spider-Man Far From Home. This film was shot before Daisy Ridley shot Rise of Skywalker. This film was shot before Mads Mikkelsen shot a lot of the stuff that he has been doing. And yet, a lot of those films that were shot after this came out before this. And it's just like, damn. Like, what? And then, in terms of the acting, I mean, I think everyone did fine. Mads Mikkelsen was probably my favorite performer of the cast because he's Mads Mikkelsen. He's awesome. He could carry a movie on his shoulders. My least favorite performance from this film, actually, I have two. Nick Jonas. Listen, I don't mind the guy. I think he's talented. I met the dude, and he's a very down to earth dude. And sometimes I forget that I met the dude. He came to a record store here in my hometown 5 years ago, and he grew up in New Jersey. He's a Jersey boy like myself, and he was very down to earth. He was a very nice guy, very humble and everything. And we chatted, and it was great. And he had a very nice handshake too. But if I'm going to be honest with myself, as an actor, I haven't really been won over by Nick Jonas. To be fair, I haven't seen him in a lot of stuff, so I can't really say that, his work in Camp Rock is extraordinary or his work in Jumanji is extraordinary. But this film, he was just so sappy and good, like, oh, Dad, oh, I'm going to kill you, Todd. Oh, like, stop it. And then David Oyelowo, oh, you're weak like a woman. Like, stop it. Shut up. He's another very good actor, and his work here just, oh, God, it's so forced. You're weak like a woman. Like, stop that. That's dumb. I don't like that. And he kept saying it over and over again. I'm like, all right, we get it. We get it. Like, you don't need to say it 20 times. That really ticked me off a lot. A lot of dialogue here just really felt uninspired and stupid and jumbled and all over the place, and it just really irked me so much. It left me ticking in my eye a lot too. So it made me go crazy. And we've seen this kind of story done before so many times, so much better, and yet this just did nothing new. Maybe if this came out on time, I don't know. I really don't know. I think if the screenplay had been better written, maybe this could have been a really good film. This really could have been something great. But the way it was executed was executed very poorly. Huge letdown for sure. Even though I will say that my expectations for it were super low, especially considering the fact that I kept getting pushed back and back and back. And then the trailers had my curiosity. And again, the concept is awesome. Living in the world where you hear people's thoughts and then the world changes when this one person comes there. I think that's cool, But we've seen stuff like this before where it's like a whole planet isolated by one person or one group of people. Then this other person comes and it's like, oh my God, everything's going to change. But there was just nothing about this movie that made me go, wow, that was incredible. That was something awesome. Instead, it was a huge, huge letdown. So the reason why I'm going to give this film 1.5 out of 5 is because of the good performances from Tom Holland, Daisy Ridley, and Mads Mikkelsen. And also, again, like I said, it's a well-made movie on a technical level. The shots are good, the action sequences were fine, but the screenplay and the very, very slow pacing and uninteresting storyline just left me very, very disappointed and unimpressed with Chaos Walking. It was at times a chaos to sit through, and it left me feeling chaotic at times. So yeah, Chaos Walking. This is currently out in theaters right now. It's not streaming anywhere right now. It's not available to rent right now. The only way to see Chaos Walking is on the big screen. So I wouldn't say it's worth watching. Just wait for this to come on some streaming service down the road, and hopefully you'll be satisfied with that. So now, that is it with those 4 movies. So to recap the films that I reviewed and the ratings I gave them, Coming to America got 2.5 out of 5 stars. SpongeBob Movie Sponge on the Run got 2.5 out of 5 stars. Raya and the Last Dragon got 4 out of 5 stars. And Chaos Walking got 1.5 out of 5 stars. And that closes out this episode of the B-roll, the very first episode of the B-roll. I'm very excited to keep doing this show with you guys. I hope you guys have stuck around and enjoyed this very first episode of the show. I know it wasn't the best. It's very hard when you start a podcast. You got to get your beat together. You got to get on a roll, B-roll. And I feel that down the road, this podcast will be something awesome. And I enjoyed doing this with you guys today. I'm very, very excited to keep doing this show. So if you guys are very interested in I can't talk. Forgive me, guys. So if you guys are interested in more of this show, follow us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the B-Roll Pod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can stay up to date with the show. If you want to stream the audio version of this, you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere. You'll be able to find it anywhere where you can listen to podcasts. Please subscribe. Stay up to date. I'm really, really excited to do this show again. I will see you guys in 2 weeks for the very next episode of the B-Roll Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. And I will see you guys for the very next episode of this show. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. Bye-bye now.